Here we go. We live.
We are live. Welcome back to the Pistons Talk podcast. You already know who I'm at. I am. I'm Lance Capros. I'm with Anthony, aka Pistons Talk. And I don't know about you, but I feel like we were trolled by James Edwards III. We talked about the tweet last week where he just said something like Killian Hayes, he's not going to be participating in Summer League. There was all this speculation like, all right, he might be traded, he might be cut.
Yeah.
Maybe he's retiring. We have no idea. Turns out, and thank God for Rod Beard, he reported that Killian Hayes was working out with the French national team. As soon as I saw that, I looked up the French national team. He's not even on the roster. I don't get it. What is Killian Hayes doing in France?
I know he's a part of the Puma brand over there, which I did see the trailer that they did release over there because he's like, I think what's really cool, I don't know if a lot of people are sneakerheads on that listen to this podcast, but like, I believe he's like one of the only NBA players, like French-born NBA players, part of the Puma brand. I know Isaiah Stewart's part of the Puma brand and LaMelo Ball is, but they're American, so he's like the it factor in terms of NBA players that are French that rock Pumas. So I think that's why he probably went over there, and I think we kind of overreacted a little bit.
We definitely did.
But it's July, and we're kind of like, now that the summer league's basically over, it's going to be, any kind of basketball news will be good basketball news.
How big do you think Killian Hayes is over in France? Like, do you think he's a popular player over there?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I'd assume so. I mean, I know he wasn't born there. He was born in Florida, obviously, which I think a lot of people forget that he was actually born in Florida. But he does kind of have like that European accent. But I feel like if he was walking down the street, people would know who he is.
He really has Europe. I don't think I've ever heard Killian Hayes talk. I have no idea if he has an accent or not. Like, I knew he was born in Florida, and he usually would go there during like the off season, I guess, and work out. I think with Will Bynum for a while, but I don't think I've ever heard Killian Hayes talk. So this is news to me that he has, an accent. That's beautiful.
Like if you ever listen to him in a presser, like you look at him, you're like, okay, he's kind of got like a European accent. Maybe he picked it over there because he did play in France, and then he played over in Germany. When we drafted him when he was playing in Ulm, so maybe he did pick up a little bit of a European accent.
I always thought he'd like sound really cool with like an Australian accent. I don't know why I always thought Killian had an Australian accent. I don't know. I'm just confused about Killian Hayes. I don't know if he's popular over in France. I don't know if I think it'd be kind of cool, even though he's just a role player here in Detroit. I think it'd be kind of cool if he could not walk down the streets in France without someone hounding him for an autograph or to take a picture. It'd be real cool if Killian was a huge celebrity overseas and just kind of like a middling player in Detroit. I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I think he's popular. I think any NBA, if you're in the NBA, you're popular at the end of the day.
Nah, that's true. That is definitely true. Speaking of the NBA, they have some news, and we're going to talk about it because even though this is a Detroit Pistons podcast, this piece of news affects the Detroit Pistons. Maybe not this season, but definitely the year after. And that is they have made the play-in tournament permanent in the NBA. Are you for the play-in tournament or are you against it? I have my opinion on it, and I'll share it after you, but how do you feel about the play-in tournament right now?
I think it's a really good idea because, before the play-in tournament, it was like, that 1 through 8, and then you kind of had, the teams like kind of circling around there, and they were just tanking. Like, let's just call it what it is. Like, if you weren't at least an 8 seed or maybe a game and a half behind the 8 seed, teams were just blowing it up and trying to tank for, that number 1 pick. And I know some people say, well, you know what, like they've kind of like fixed tanking where you can't, get that top pick. But I mean, you can still guarantee yourself a pretty high pick. I think what the play-in does is it gives teams that would regularly be tanking actually trying to compete for a play-in and try to, push for the playoffs. And I think it is really good for the NBA. I know I wouldn't be surprised if other leagues tried to adapt this, like NFL, maybe Major League Baseball will do it too. I think it's really good for the sport.
I think baseball needs to include a few more teams in the playoffs. I like the NFL the way it is. I like that there's a first round bye. It's one game elimination. I'm starting to love the play-in tournament. I really fell in love with the idea when they first started talking about it. After the first year of the play-in tournament, I was still kind of excited, but I was a little disappointed just because you have like a ninth and a 10th seed. They could be like 8, 9, 10 games back. And I just think there has to be some type of modification to the play-in criteria. Like, I don't want to see a 10 like the Spurs. They had a chance to be in the play-in last season, and I think they had a losing record. Like, I thought they were trying to eliminate those teams from getting into the playoffs. I think the play-in tournament, it's a wonderful idea. I do think it needs to be modified just a little bit. As in, if you're 8, 9, 10 games back, you're eliminated from the playoffs. There's no reason for you to be a play-in team. Like, let's still keep it competitive. I don't need losers in the playoffs. Like, I want the best of the best. I don't want, some team that's 32 and, man, I'm terrible with math, like 32 and 50. I don't want them being in the play-ins because they beat some team on one lucky night. Like, I don't want that. So do you want to see changes to the play-in? Like, or are you okay with the way it's set up right now?
I'm okay with it, honestly. It gives false hope to teams that feel like they're close. Like, I would have loved, like, during the Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, like the Stan Van Gundy era, like if the plan was a thing, would be in the playoffs every year. We already know it, right?
Yeah.
I think it does give false hope, and I think it does kind of prevent teams from blowing up their roster and trying to push for the playoffs. And plus, you're getting, extra playoff games during the NBA playoffs, and that means more ratings. That means more money for the league. So I think at the end of the day, it is good for the NBA.
Now, do you want to see them do like a middle of the season tournament at all? Or are you a fan of that, or do you hate that idea?
I'm indifferent. I mean, like,
Same.
I don't really care. I feel like the players would care though. Like, if it's during All-Star break, I bet you they'd be so against it. Like, have they announced like when it's going to be?
No, they said they're kind of like flirting with the idea that they're still working on the details to do a middle of the season tournament, but they haven't actually, like, I don't know if they've laid the groundwork. I don't think we're going to see it this year, possibly even next year. I do think at some point we are going to see a middle of the season tournament. I mean, I'm on the fence about the idea, I guess. It depends on who's going to be competing and what do they get. Now, if you were going to put the worst teams at the time in the middle of the season tournament and say, hey, the winner will get better odds at the number 1 overall pick, I would actually really like that. I've been into some arguments with other basketball fans that actually hate that idea because they think that professional basketball players will tank the tournament because they don't want some young kid coming in and taking their job. But as we all know, more film on you than teams can watch. It's probably better for you to get another contract. So I don't know. I did tend to disagree. I think if there was a middle of the season tournament, players would take it seriously.
Yeah, I just feel like they're going to put it during All-Star break, honestly. And then, like, I know during All-Star break, if you're not making like the All-Star team, most players take vacations with their families. It's an 82-game season. You're probably away from your family a lot. I know I was reading some articles. A lot of like players were really against it, honestly, of like a mid-season tournament. I can understand why. Honestly, I'd rather just see King of the Court, honestly, during freaking All-Star weekend.
That'd be cool too.
Like, straight up, like, just give me like Steph Curry and LeBron. Like, I just want to watch that, and I think fans would love that too.
So you know how players are talking about like changing the 82 game schedule to less games. Would you want less games in a mid-season tournament, or would you rather scrap the mid-season tournament but keep it 82 games during the regular season?
I'd probably just scrap the mid-season tournament.
I'm with you.
I get what the NBA is trying to do, but at the same time, it's just like if you can't even lay the groundwork for it, obviously players are against it because they want to take time off too. Like if it's during All-Star break, I know I keep bringing that up. I think that's the only way they can actually kind of make it work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know when they would do it. Like, are we talking like a 64 game regular season, and then we're gonna get 8 teams competing in some midseason tournament? Are we doing this before the All-Star break? Are we going into All-Star break? Is it during All-Star break? Like, there's so many different questions I have about the midseason tournament. I don't know where it would fit in line of anything. If anything, if I would love for the NBA to do, scrap the midseason tournament, keep it 82 games, but start the season on Christmas Day. That's what I would rather have. If they're going to make any changes to the NBA regular season, start the season pretty much after football season. That's what I'd rather see. Then forget a mid-season tournament. Just change the start date of the NBA.
I remember that. Was that during COVID when they started in December?
Yeah, I think they started late November, though, early December, somewhere around there. I liked it more, to be honest.
That was so weird, but I enjoyed it so much. Like Christmas Day games were like I was actually kind of like excited to watch them because
Same.
like during like the COVID season, I think we almost went like a year with like out basketball because we didn't like really know when it was going to start and what was going to happen, if we're going to go in another bubble. But I mean, man, I don't know if I could last until Christmas.
Well, I mean,
with no basketball.
Yeah, but we would get the playoffs though carried into later in the season, so that'd be kind of cool though.
I don't know. I don't think my sanity could, like, if it's October and there's no basketball on, you're gonna force me to watch the Detroit Lions.
Oh yeah, well that's true too. That's like, oh man, I'll just be busy. I'll just go on vacation on Sundays if basketball starts in December.
Man, you're really about to make me watch the NFL for 2 months until basketball's on in December.
Dude, hey, if you want to watch it together, I'll grill food. We can just eat burgers, chicken, whatever, and we'll just hang out at your house. Why not?
Man.
All right, coming up next, we got news and rumors, and boy, do we got some news and rumors for you guys. But first, we're just going to take a quick little break. This is only for the podcast, though. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Summer League. I missed games 4 and 5. I was working. I had some stuff going on. It is what it is, but we're still going to talk a little bit about Summer League. Let's talk about Jalen Duren, though, for a minute, man, because as the number one guy in game 3, because there was no Jaden Ivey, there was no Stewart, there was no Isaiah Livers, there was really nobody else there, and I don't know. He looked kind of like he's going to be starting the season in the G League based on that game.
Okay.
Dude, I think they were trying to make him be the guy, and it just did not work out. He looked a little lost out there, just a little bit. I mean, he's going to be way better with more talent around him for sure. But I saw also on Twitter expectations for Duren went down a little bit after that game.
Okay, who is his point guard?
Probably Charlie Moore. And I finally figured out who that was and what team he plays for.
I told you that Isaiah Jackson would be a true test for him.
Yep.
Because they're very similar players. And I don't think he's going to be in the G League. I think he's going to be in the rotation. I'm not jumping on he's going to be in the G League to start the year bandwagon. I think he's going to be in the rotation. Even Casey hinted at it a little bit last week that he's going to be using him a lot. So that was interesting. And his comp for him was Sean Kemp. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that.
That's a hell of a comp.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, man. Like I said, he was playing with a bunch of G Leaguers. Like I expected him to struggle a little bit. And his creator was Charlie Moore. I mean, Charlie Moore has been probably one of the better players on this G League, or I keep saying G League, on the Summer League roster. But I mean, if Jaden Ivey was out there, I'm sure he would have had a hell of a game. Same with Killian Hayes. At the end of the day, he didn't really have a creator getting him good looks. He did struggle against the guy that has a similar frame to his in Isaiah Jackson, and I think he's going to be fine. I'm not going to overreact in a Summer League game.
No, but you're right. Like, he did struggle against Isaiah Jackson, and Isaiah Jackson played 36 games last year for the Pacers, averaged about 8 points a game. He is definitely a rotation piece already in the NBA. Everybody else he had beat up on up until that point was not a rotation guy in the NBA. Like we talked about it last week, Luka Garza was the best center he had played against up until Isaiah Jackson. So maybe I'm being a little mean saying G League to start the year. I definitely expect Duren to get minutes because the G League season starts after the NBA season anyways. It's not like they're just going to keep him out of games. I'm not saying they're going to keep him out of games to play G League games. I just think that Duren's not going to get a lot of minutes to start off, and he's going to be playing a bulk of the big minute games that he's going to get, I believe those are going to be in the G League to start the year. And then after All-Star break, you're going to see more Duren in the rotation. But I didn't hear Casey say that he had big plans for him. I just heard the Sean Kemp comparison, by the way.
It was a presser I was listening to with Coach Casey. I don't know if it was public. I don't know if they ever posted it. So maybe that was me kind of spilling information. Whoops.
I don't even know what to say to that, but that's.
I don't know if the Pistons upload all their media availability on their YouTube channel. I know they do a little bit, but I don't think they don't post every little thing they say, because half of the stuff that gets said in those interviews, it's like they're boring, one, and two, they only want to clip the best stuff.
Yeah, and everybody's going to take it out of context, just like people listening to this are going to take out of context that Duran's probably going to. There's probably someone watching this right now that thinks, oh, Duran's going to be the starter, just based on what you had said. So that's cool. It's awesome.
I don't think he's going to be the starter, but I think he's going to be one of the first centers off the bench.
Well, we'll just have to wait till the season starts to see who's right between us. But who is your MVP of Summer League for the Detroit Pistons?
I think it's got to be one of the Isaiahs.
I agree with you 100%.
If I had to say the MVP, I got to go Isaiah Stewart. Just because, well, I know I talked about it on our very first podcast. I said, if I want to take Isaiah Stewart seriously, I said, I got to see him stretch the floor. I got to see him have more offensive responsibilities. And he proved it during the summer league. He looks like a guy that could shoot, league average from three. I know he was going crazy. I think he only missed maybe 2 3-pointers through the whole summer league, but I don't expect that to happen when the regular season starts. But I mean, I was really impressed with what I saw from him from the outside defensively. You know what you're going to get. Really high energy guy, and really excited for his development.
One thing I was really excited about Isaiah Stewart too, outside of the 3-point shooting, he started to put the ball on the ground. I know a lot of fans dislike that. At least I shouldn't say a lot of fans, but I did see fans complaining about him putting the ball on the floor. Like we've been preaching these last podcast, all these podcasts. It's summer league. We want to see guys try things. We want to see them playing out of the roles that we always expect to see them in during the regular season. So I had no problem with Isaiah Stewart putting the ball on the ground. He looked like he could get around a few guys. I think the 3-point shooting is going to be there this season, and I think we're going to see a little bit of him, pump faking and putting the ball on the ground and driving it to the rim. I think Isaiah Stewart is definitely capable of doing that. He's a great choice for Summer League MVP. I'm going with Isaiah Livers. He's from Kalamazoo. I'm from Kalamazoo. Got to pick my guy. But Isaiah Livers, really, he showed a lot. I think Summer League, he looked more like Isaiah Livers at the University of Michigan than he did coming back from injury. Last year when he came back from the injury, he looked more of a 3-and-D guy, just going to spot up, shoot, play defense, and I'm going to talk. He was bringing the ball up a little bit. He looked really active on the boards. He was setting up the offense. Not a lot, just some things I noticed. He was setting up the offense. He looked more like the complete player he was in college that was pushing him into the late first round category than just a 3-and-D guy. So I'm going to have to go Isaiah Livers as my MVP.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. I mean, this sounds like a little bit of bias because he's from Kalamazoo.
Oh, it's definitely biased.
I'm not mad at that. I think Isaiah Livers kind of showed you what he was at the University of Michigan. What I was really impressed with him is his post game. I didn't know he had that. That post game is nice, man. He had a couple, fadeaways. I was like, oh, okay, I see you.
Watching him in college was so much fun because it was in the Bad Boy Mowers Bahamas tournament or whatever it's called, and they were playing North Carolina. And this is when, I was already a fan of Isaiah Livers way before this happened, but he checked Cole Anthony, who was the 17th pick or whatever that year, checked him 90 feet, pressed him 90 feet, and then came down and played point guard for Michigan and was running the pick and roll with, I think, John Teskey or whatever. And it was just so cool to see him check Cole Anthony for 90 feet and then come down and play point guard on the offensive end. He's a Swiss Army knife. He can do whatever you ask of him on a basketball floor. Isaiah Livers, like, I'm really buying into the notion he might be a starter this season too for the Detroit Pistons. I'm really buying into that now just by watching him in summer league. Like, his game looks so much more complete than it did in the 19 games last year.
Yeah, no, I was getting a lot of crap for that a couple weeks ago when I put him and Sadiq as the 3 and the 4, and people are like, dude, you're crazy. That's too small. It's just like, dude, like, if he can bring it defensively and, be a respectable 3-point shooter and, bring all the intangibles that he brought in the summer league, like, he could be your opening night small forward or power forward, whatever you want to, play Sadiq at. I think sky's the limit with the kid, and the fact that he fell in the second round because of injury, it's just a steal for the Pistons.
Yeah, it's funny that people complain to you about that, but DeMar DeRozan was a power forward. He technically played the 4 for the Bulls this past year. I think for like 89% of his minutes, they were played at the power forward. Grant Williams played the 4 for the Boston Celtics. It's not unheard of for an undersized guy to play the 4 spot in today's NBA. But who are you more excited about watching this regular season, Jaden Ivey or Jalen Duren?
Probably Jalen Duren, not playing in the G League.
Dude, you're going to be waiting a long time to be excited about Jalen Duren. I'm telling you, man, that dude's going to be swinging a towel a lot this year to start the season.
Damn. What did he do to you?
He didn't do anything. I'm just being patient. I love the kid. I think he's going to be amazing. I really do. But I just, like me, I've been a fan for a long time, and I've gotten carried away about every rookie that has ever been drafted by the Pistons. Like, since I've been watching basketball, I get carried away with it. I put way too high of expectations. Like, it's a problem I have. So I'm just trying to temper my expectations. I got chewed out by actually a client of mine that follows me on Twitter because I said Ivey was going to average 13 points per game his rookie year. And he's like, dude, you're totally wrong. I'm like, look, and I'm just trying to be realistic about this. So you're excited about Jalen Duren. I'm personally excited about Ivey. I think he is going to be amazing his rookie year. There's just going to, with all that spacing and playing off of Cade and Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart and Isaiah Livers, like, he's going to be amazing. He's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of Sports Center top 10s for Jaden Ivey this year. That's why I'm excited about him.
Oh, for sure. I think Jaden Ivey's like the easy answer because I feel like everyone likes watching guards.
It's true.
Like, guards are just entertaining to watch. I mean, especially like a guy like Jaden Ivey who is so athletic. He's going to be having, like you said, Sports Center. He's going to be dunking. He's going to be, just his speed in general. Like the Pistons are going to be a really fast team in transition this year because of Jaden Ivey. They're going to be running a lot.
Oh, yeah. And then, I was just about to say that, him running in transition, there was a play that he had in Summer League where he split 2 defenders. He went in between the middle of them. Even just, a guy on the Pistons being able to do something like that, that's exciting in itself. And I'm not trying to diminish what Duren is going to do in the NBA. It's just that I just think Ivey's going to be a part of the rotation to start the season. And Duren is, you already heard me say that.
Well, I knew you weren't going to pick Duren anyway, so that's why I picked him.
Oh, okay. I should have, I even thought to myself, I'm like, Anthony knows I'm picking Ivey, so I know he's going to pick Duren. I should just pick Duren and throw this whole thing off. Why not?
No, I knew you weren't going to pick him. You're like, well, why would I be excited if I think he's going to be in the G League?
Yeah, that's true. But I could have. No, but which player were you excited about this summer league that disappointed you? I think I already know your answer, but.
I have been slandering this player so much that I actually feel bad. I feel so bad because, I know he's trying his hardest. I know, his jump shot isn't the best, but what happened to Saben Lee?
Oh, wow. I did not know you were going to go with Saben Lee. I did not know that. I was completely thrown off. I think the thing with Saben Lee, man, is just he's in that weird spot where, it's too easy in the G League, but every other guy is just as athletic as him, and they could cut him off. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have an in-between game. He only has so many moves to get to the rim, and when you block that off, he doesn't have a jumper that he's comfortable and confident enough to let fly. So I just think all those things are working against him. But yeah, it's a great choice with Saben Lee, man.
Who do you think I was going with?
Buddy Boeheim.
Oh, nah.
Yeah, I thought I thought you were definitely look. Buddy was my pick too. Like I was just going to agree with you before you had said Saban. Buddy Boeheim was pegged what as the greatest shooter in this year's draft or whatever. Like the purest jump shot, showed absolutely nothing in the summer league against all of his peers. He showed nothing. Unbelievable.
You know what? He did start heating up when I was talking crap about him on a live stream. I think it was against the Pacers. I think he had like 18 points. I was just like, yeah, it's because I was talking crap about him. But he's a two-way player, so it's just like I'm not really – my expectations are really low for two-way players. I mean, I don't really expect a two-way player to be like a starter or a rotation piece at all. They're just insurance policies. I was more disappointed in Saban because it's like, okay, you probably have the most experience out of anyone on that G League roster. I think people forget that, you know, he didn't come straight out of college. He was at Vanderbilt under Jerry Stackhouse for a minute. I just thought he would have dominated in the summer league, but I don't know if he was trying to prove a point that, hey, it's just like I'm still the point guard on this team. I don't know. Like
No, you're right. It felt that way though, right? With him at the point guard. Like it seemed like he was all for himself and was playing kind of selfish basketball.
Yeah, I mean, like I just thought he would have been more under control. And you know, getting all that stint in the G League this year, you know, putting up those 40-point, 30-point games, I really thought he would have been more under control. Maybe he was just nervous about, you know, playing in the summer league because I mean, last summer league he was really good. I don't know if it's just maybe he hasn't played a ton of reps this summer because I know he's been working on his jump shot a lot. Maybe he hasn't really been doing a lot of open gym runs.
He's one of those guys that has like no confidence in himself. I don't understand it either because he has such a there's a smoothness to his game. Like when you watch the highlights, when you watch him in the G League, like he looks so much comfortable playing against lesser opponents, and like he almost knows it. If he went into the NBA with that mindset, like okay, you know I'm equal with these guys, I think he would do a lot better. But I also think he gets into that mind frame of look, this dude's been a starter probably since he started playing basketball, right? We could probably safely say that about Saban Lee. He's probably had almost no competition on any teams he's ever played on. And now, so he's always used to being the man. So when you're going from like 30 plus minutes a night, college, high school, G League, to playing like what, 12 minutes a night in the NBA, it probably throws you off where you're like, man, I only got 12 minutes. I got to make something happen in these 12 minutes. I feel like he's just one of those guys that doesn't let the game come to him.
I mean, even last year, he had some really good games for the Pistons off the bench. I mean, like he was a pretty solid rotation piece when they called him up from the Motor City Crew. So it's just, I don't know if he hasn't been that active this summer. Like I said, I know he's been working with the guard whisperer on his jump shot, who's a very good player development coach. I mean, he does work out with Evan Mobley, and he works out Evan Mobley and a lot of NBA talent. I know I've talked to him a couple times saying that he's trying to help him fix his jump shot. Maybe he's been just hyper focused on that jump shot and not really focused on, you know, like I said, doing those open gym runs that you see in the summer all the time with Rico Hines and all those guys out there. Maybe he's just been focusing on that, but that's the one player I was disappointed in because I really thought, you know, he's got tons of experience. He should have dominated that. He should have, you know, been starting. He should have just been going at these guys in the summer league because you kind of look at the guards that we were facing. I mean, they weren't like really that good.
No, yeah, I don't even really remember. Like no guard that they played against really stood out to me other than Benedict Mathurin. Like
Yeah,
he stood out to me against the Pacers, but other than that, nobody really. Did you think Saban's jump shot looked a little better though?
I think from the videos that I've seen like during the summer, I know that it's not as jittery. It's still a work in progress. Like I said last week, I just think he needs to change it all completely. Just, you know, ditch what it is now because it's just a weird looking jump shot. I feel like if he just changed it, it would just be more fluid and more natural because it just looks unnatural when he's shooting it.
Yeah, I don't know how players get that hitch in their shots. Like I watch a guy and you're a professional athlete, but you have a hitch in your shot. I don't like I've been playing basketball since I was 5 years old. I I'm not saying I have a better jump shot than Saban Lee, but I don't have a hitch in it, and I'm not a professional. Like, it's not hard not to have that hitch. I don't get why guys have that, but it's whatever. It's Saban's thing. Hopefully he does well, whether it's on the Pistons or another team. But I do agree with you now that I'm rethinking my answer. Saban Lee, probably the most disappointing player of Summer League. I think that's a great answer for that question.
Yeah, I feel bad because I know how much hard work he puts in, and working out, being in the G League, putting in the extra reps. I mean, not only working with the Pistons and then going down to the Motor City Cruise and working out with them. So he's been putting in a lot of work. I just hope that, this Summer League wasn't going to be what he's going to look like this year, because if that's the case, he's going to be regressing. And I don't want to see that out of any player. I don't care if he's a starter like Cade Cunningham or like a G League guy like Saban Lee.
Gotcha. So name a player you would like to see on the regular season roster. Probably a guy that you don't expect to make the roster, but a guy you're rooting for.
I feel like it's got to be Braxton Key. I feel like that's the only option. I mean, like, you look at the Summer League roster, there's guys like Charlie Moore who I could see getting actually a stint with the Motor City Cruise, because we actually lost our point guard, University of Michigan alum Derek Walton. Going to be playing in Australia, so it's just like,
yes, sir.
You kind of need someone to be that guy. I think Braxton Key definitely has a shot if there's an injury, but if there's not an injury, he's probably just a two-way player.
See, Braxton Key was my answer as well, but he was on the team last year. He got some regular season minutes. I'm actually going with Charlie Moore. He's I started watching him play even more, and I really love Charlie Moore's game. Like, there's nothing super flashy about it. He just keeps his head down, goes to work, and just balls out from game to game. Like, his last game that he played, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I think he had a 20-7 game or something like that. Like, Charlie Moore is the man. I don't think he makes the roster, but I agree with you. I think he's going to be on the G League. But he's a guy, too, that, if they were to get rid of Corey Joseph and they brought Charlie Moore in, I don't know if it would be that big of a drop-off between those two players. They're kind of similar. I was watching a little bit of Charlie Moore, and I'm like, he kind of reminds me of Corey Joseph, who I love as a backup guard. So I would be all in on Charlie Moore making the regular season roster.
Yeah, he had a couple of lobs to Jalen Duren, too, during the Summer League, which I was really impressed with. I wouldn't be mad if he was on the Motor City Cruise roster. I don't see the Pistons getting rid of Corey Joseph. I just don't.
Yeah, neither do I.
They need a veteran to mentor, Jaden and Cade and Killian, and I think he's just a perfect mentor off the bench, even though it does, come at a $5 million cost.
I mean, really, $5 million's not bad for a backup guard that shoots 42% from three. Corey Joseph's all right. It's a decent payday for him.
It's just his dribbling and not passing that probably infuriates me.
That is so true, because he will dribble, he just puts his head down, and he just does not want to give that thing up. He really does. I love Corey Joseph's confidence. I wish I had that confidence in my everyday life, where I thought I was the best player on the court. I just wish I had Corey Joseph's confidence in everything that I did, because that dude's going to be successful no matter what. But
yeah.
Want to talk about this. I know a lot of Pistons fans are going to disagree with us, but Andre Iguodala dropped one hell of a quote on the Dan Le Batard show with Stu Gatz. Iggy says, if Rasheed Wallace played in our league today, he'd be better than Giannis, and I love Giannis. Look, I love Rasheed Wallace, but he's not better than Giannis. He's not better than Giannis back in the day. He will never be better than Giannis today. There's just Giannis is a once-in-a-lifetime player. You're not going to see Giannis again. He's once in a lifetime. Any foreign player, any player that's 6'11" that can dribble the ball, you can compare to Giannis. They're never going to be Giannis. There will never be another Giannis Antetokounmpo in the NBA. But probably there'll never be another Rasheed, but Rasheed Wallace is not better than Giannis. So do you agree with Andre Iguodala and what he said about Rasheed Wallace?
Couple things. I've talked about this probably 5 times this week, so get ready.
Okay.
This quote is being so aggregated, and they're not giving you the full quote. ESPN chose what they wanted to put out.
Okay.
I watched that whole interview with Andre Iguodala. I think what he said was not off base. I believe Rasheed Wallace, if he was playing in the modern NBA, would be a top 5 player in the NBA right now. I think it would be better than Anthony Davis right now. I think people forget before Detroit, Portland, he was the guy in Portland. During the Western Conference Finals, he was going at Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. Now, most Pistons fans probably didn't see that because there's a lot of younger generation that, are Cade Cunningham fans.
That's true.
I was probably only 8 or 9 when Rasheed was in Portland with Scottie Pippen during those days. But, I think people forget Rasheed Wallace was a dog. If he played in the modern NBA, there's no doubt in my mind he would be one of the best power forwards right now.
Oh, man, I remember those Portland days. I used to hate Bonzi Wells when he played Detroit. I have no idea why I hated Bonzi Wells when he played Detroit, but I did.
Player.
Dude, I loved – I think he was actually originally drafted by Detroit and then traded away. I don't think he ever – I could be misremembering that. But anyways, I was still too young at that draft. I disagree with you on Rasheed Wallace about being a top 5 player in today's NBA. And talent-wise, yes, 100%. He had all the talent in the world. Like, even if you go back to when he played, there's a universe where he is the number one guy. He had talent to be better than Tim Duncan. He had talent to be better than Kevin Garnett. He had talent to be better than Dirk. Those are probably the three best power forwards from his era. I think most would agree with me. He had the talent to be better than those guys. The thing that always throws me off about Rasheed Wallace is, and I still get goosebumps about the trade, by the way, like when he was traded to Detroit, that's one of those moments in Detroit Pistons history. Even at 31 years old now, even though it's been years since they won that championship, I still don't believe that trade actually happened, because that was, at that time, it was just so unreal. I'm like, dude, they finally got the guy. Like, they finally got Rasheed Wallace. This is amazing. Like, he's going to put them over the top. But Rasheed Wallace left a lot of meat on the bones in his career. I don't think his mindset is going to change in the modern NBA. If you're just talking about, like, I look at it this way. If you have like a grab claw machine in front of you and you have all of the players in the history of the NBA and you can just use the little machine, you got your lever, you pick the guy up and you just put him in the modern NBA. You don't change anything else about him. Their careers would probably be similar. Like, I don't think just because Rasheed Wallace is playing in the modern NBA, he's just going to be this amazing player, because he didn't have it in his head to be the great player. He didn't want to be that. Like, because if he did want to be that, he would have been that. He had the talent for sure. He wanted to be a guy that, I'm okay with kind of being the guy, but I want to be more of a support star. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be the man. I want to be a part of a team that wins. Like, that's what Rasheed Wallace wanted. Like, he's a very selfless player in that regard. You look back at his career in Detroit, he only averaged like 15 points a game. When he could have averaged 20. The Pistons needed a 20-point scorer, or they could have used a 20-point scorer, but they were so good collectively, they didn't need that from him. So he just did everything else. And that's the type of player Rasheed Wallace was. I just don't think it matters what era you put him in. He's always going to be that guy that leaves you wanting more. He can help you win, and it's great, but you're going to look back on his career and just be like, you know what? He could have done more. He could have been a 20 and 11 guy. He could have been a multiple-time All-Star. He could have been the franchise savior. He could have been all of that, but Rasheed Wallace wasn't. I don't see that changing in the modern NBA.
I do, man. I don't think he's better than Giannis. I'm not going that far with Andre Iguodala. But I will say, guys like Kevin Garnett, like you mentioned, whose toughest guy was to cover? Rasheed Wallace. Same with Tim Duncan. Same with Dirk Nowitzki. Rasheed Wallace, no doubt in my mind, he'd be top 5. He'd be a top 5 power forward in the NBA right now. I think he'd average 25 in the modern NBA. Because if you look at his game is perfect for the modern NBA. He could stretch the floor.
It is.
Love shooting that three. Had a post-up game. Could defend when he wanted to. I think it's all a will thing. And I think us kind of saying, well, he wouldn't be that because he wasn't that in Detroit. I think it's all situational. If he was on a team that he wanted to be there, I think he could be a number one option. I think he could score 25 points in today's NBA with the amount of fouls they call and the hand checking. You can't even touch a player in the post. Look at Joel Embiid. You don't think Rasheed Wallace would get those same calls, especially complaining at the refs?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, he's just one of those guys that left you wanting more. And I don't think that would change in the modern NBA. That's like my biggest argument for him. Like, if if you were to give Rasheed Wallace the Ben Wallace mindset, you're talking about one of the greatest players of all time. Ben Wallace had the mindset to be great. He just didn't have the talent. And then that's not disrespectful to Ben Wallace at all. It's just he was not as talented as Rasheed Wallace. Like, I think you can't argue with that. I mean, Rasheed Wallace, top 5 talent, not a top 5 NBA player. That's what I've always said about him.
Well, I just disagree with that, man. I watched him a lot. The trick shots he would make in practice, you see him. It's just, I think where players that played against him like Iguodala did, because you got to remember Iguodala was a rookie when the Pistons were beating the Sixers during the playoffs, so he got to see him a lot during his younger days. So I'm not really surprised by that. And there's been a lot of players, like former players that played against him recently, have said the same thing as Andre Iguodala. Like, he could have been a dog if he wanted it.
But that's what I'm getting at. If he wanted it, I just don't think he wanted. I think he did enough to have a long NBA career, to be talked about I guess with relevance in a way. I guess you could say that he did enough to still be talked about. But when people are talking about him, I think they see the same thing. We're like, dude, he could have been more. Like, he could have been much, much more. But it just wasn't in him to do that. Like, that dude. I think there's like this story about him when he played at Washington. They're like, yeah, we want you to get in the post. He's like, dude, I'm bored playing in the post. I want to shoot threes. So he just started shooting threes. And it's like, he stepped away from the things that made him a lottery pick. Like, he stepped away from those things for a while. And I don't know. I don't know. I love Rasheed Wallace. Let me say that. I just think he left a lot of meat on the bones for people, at least for me.
Yeah, I can understand that, because you see the talent there. And I think every Piston fan, when we traded for him, was super ecstatic. I mean, Joe Dumars was calling Portland every damn day about Rasheed Wallace. And as soon as he got traded to Atlanta, that was it. Joe Dumars is like, come on, I got my guy. Let's go.
Oh, like I told you, I got goosebumps. Even when I'm thinking about it now, I still get goosebumps about that trade because, like I said, it just doesn't seem real. Like, the Pistons literally had Rasheed Wallace on their team. That's bigger than Blake Griffin in my mind. That's bigger than Blake, having Rasheed Wallace on the Pistons. And, like, I know that sounds crazy because Blake was super popular, but Rasheed Wallace at that time, holy crap, he was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like because Rasheed, brought us that championship, and we had good teams. I mean, we had like probably one of the best starting fives of my childhood growing up. But I mean, if Blake won a championship, I don't know. That'd be a close one.
Man, yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm just saying in terms of the trade. I don't know why the Rasheed. Maybe because I was so young when it happened. I was like maybe 13 or 14 when it happened, and maybe it's just hits a little different because I was still a kid at the time. And maybe I'm remembering it through that lens. But the Blake Griffin trade, it was like, oh, this is cool. Blake Griffin's here. Awesome. But with Rasheed, it was like, holy crap. We are winning the NBA finals. Like, I don't know why my mindset just changed. Like, as soon as we got Rasheed, it was over, and I knew it. Did you hear what Chauncey Billups said about Rasheed Wallace, though? I saw Woodward Sports had actually posted it. It was a clip of him talking about he needed to get a tech. I think that's just hilarious, too. Like, throw a tech at Rasheed, and he's one of the best players.
Yeah, because it's like Rasheed plays really good when he's mad. He's like, man, just give him a tech, like, just piss him off. And then he's just like, yeah, he makes like 4 out of 5 because he was just barking at the ref. He's like, you gonna let him talk to you like that?
So it's so awesome. I hope we never see a personality like Rasheed Wallace on the floor either. I hope we never see it again, man. One of a kind players, man, for sure.
For sure.
Bleacher Report tweeted the NBA's best young cores. The Detroit Pistons came in at 8th. Do you agree with Bleacher Report?
No, I don't have the list in front of me, but I believe we were ahead of the Houston Rockets, correct?
Yeah, we were ahead of Houston was number 9, and who was number 10? I got the list in front of me. Just give me a second. But I do have a take on the young core, though. Like, not just the Pistons' young core, just some of the teams in front of them. Like, I'm looking at some of these teams, like Boston, for example. Just going to point out Boston. Or is their young core really that great? If we're talking about players that are 25 or younger, it's Jason Tatum, it's Robert Williams, it's Grant Williams, and then it's Peyton Pritchard. Like, is that really that great of a core to be ranked ahead of Detroit? It's one superstar.
I don't even think you can count them as a young core anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you make the NBA Finals, I think that should kind of like disqualify you from like a young core. I get like 25 and younger, but I mean, like, when I look at Boston, I don't really think young core. I think playoff contender. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So the list goes in order 1 through 10: Memphis, New Orleans, Cleveland, Boston at number 4. I don't agree with that. Atlanta, Oklahoma City, Toronto, Detroit, Houston, Orlando at number 10. Personally, I think Orlando should be a little bit higher. I think Houston
Yeah.
should be higher. And I think Detroit should be higher. I'm not going to suggest the Pistons should be like, top 3 or top 2 or even number 1. I'm not going to be that biased about it, but I do think they should be ranked a little higher than Detroit. Do you want to go through the list and say what young cores we would actually take over the Detroit Pistons?
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay, the Grizzlies. Would you take the Grizzlies young core over the Detroit Pistons?
Yes.
Okay. I would take the Pistons over the Grizzlies.
Okay.
The Pelicans. Would you take their core over the Pistons?
Their core is just, it's so interesting because you have Zion, you have Ingram, Dyson Daniels, who they just drafted,
Herb Jones.
I feel like if I said I would take the Pistons, it would be biased. I feel like I would probably take the Pelicans core over the Pistons core, just because they have such a squad, man. So like I'm not trying to be that biased Pistons fan saying Pistons should be number 1. Like I think Pistons on this list should at least be 6.
That's interesting too. But I agree with you. I'm actually taking the Pelicans core over the Pistons core because you have that superstar in Zion Williamson. He's going to put butts in the seats. You have Brandon Ingram, who is probably one of the more underrated players in the NBA, a legit 25-7 guy. Like on any other team, you're building the team around Brandon Ingram. Then you got Herb Jones. He's probably going to be, if everything plays out right, probably an all defensive team member at some point. Dyson Daniels, he looks solid. Probably the next Lonzo Ball. Trey Murphy, he's a lights out shooter. They got a decent squad in New Orleans, so I definitely would take the Pelicans core. The Cavaliers core, you taking them over the Pistons?
So they have Evan Mobley, Darius Garland,
Jared Allen. Their big 3.
Jared Allen. No, I'm not, because
What?
I think if Darius Garland goes down, then they're just a regular team.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not in love with their young core either. Like I like them individually. I just wouldn't take that core over what the Pistons are building. Like if you wanted to add Darius Garland to the Pistons core in exchange for somebody, I'd be open arms, or like add Jared Allen or Evan Mobley. But in terms of taking the core, I'm sticking with the Pistons for sure.
Well, not only that, like you saw when Jared Allen went down, what Evan Mobley looked like defensively. Like,
yep.
I mean, I love Evan Mobley. I think he's going to be one of the better big men in this league. But I mean, the Cavs core, like they have some pieces, but like we just talked about the Pelicans like 2 minutes ago. They have like we didn't even talk about guys like Kyra Lewis,
yep,
or SGA's cousin. I mean, they have this deep squad. Like the Cavs, like they have pieces, but that team has a lot of veterans on it too. I wouldn't really consider them as a young core.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out what the definition from Bleacher Report is for a young core, because some of these teams just make no sense. But Boston, they're coming in at number 4. We kind of already alluded to this, but are you taking Boston's core over Detroit?
I mean, that has made the NBA Finals. I mean, I would, because you get, Jason Tatum. I don't know how old Jaylen Brown is. If you want to consider it a young core, I mean, I think any Piston fan, like if you said, hey, would you rather have like Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey or Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? I feel like, most Pistons fans are like, well, yeah, I like Jason Tatum. He's nice. Like,
see, I love Jason Tatum. It's the same thing with the Cavaliers. I like individual players. I just don't like the core itself. But like, yeah, I would take Jason Tatum, but I don't even think I would take him over Cade Cunningham. And the reason is because I think Cade's offensive game, he may not be the scorer that Tatum is, but I think his offensive game is going to be better. Like he's going to be able to hurt you in many ways. Like Tatum without the ball, he doesn't really do much for me. He just stands. Like I don't really see him making cuts or moving without the ball.
Yeah, it's just I don't know why Boston's in there. Like I'm just kind of looking at it objectively as like a team standpoint. Like obviously, like Cade Cunningham is an amazing player, but like I feel like where the Pistons are at in their like young core, so to say, Boston shouldn't even be on this list. Honestly, I mean, outside of Tatum, like you said, like Peyton Pritchard, Robert Williams, and Grant Williams, it's like that's not. You shouldn't be fourth based off of that because I mean, you could go down the NBA's list of young cores, and I'm sure there are teams that could have made this list that didn't.
Yeah, I would have to go look back on some of these other teams. Like, I mean, the San Antonio Spurs. I know they just traded Dante Murray, but like they got a decent young core of players there that look like that. Some of them look like they're going to be pretty promising, like Josh Primo, Keldon Johnson, just to name a couple. But it is what it is. Number 5, Atlanta Hawks. You taking them over the Detroit Pistons?
No, I'm not.
See, okay, go on. My bad.
You got Trae Young. I mean, you have guys like John Collins who are still in the roster. You just traded for DeJounte Murray. I think the Pistons are going to have more of a long-term success than the Atlanta Hawks over the next 5 years because I think what's going to happen is all these guys are going to be coming off their rookie contracts and they're just not going to be able to afford them. This team is just like they did it. I think the season previous where they spent a shitload of money and they weren't really a playoff team. They had to make some moves. I think Atlanta, I like Trae Young. I think he's a really good point guard. I think he's like a top 10 point guard in the NBA. But I mean, I'd rather have Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, the Hawks were one of those teams that I originally put down that I would take over the Pistons because you have John Collins at 24, you have Sharif Cooper, you have AJ Griffin now, you have DeAndre Hunter who's 24, you have Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Okongwu. You got some decent pieces. I just don't know how they all play out. Like I haven't seen enough of these guys, but they were originally one of the teams I would take over the Pistons young core, but I'm taking the Pistons young core over the Atlanta Hawks. And one more point about the Boston Celtics I want to make. Like the reason I wouldn't take their young core, another reason for it is I don't feel like the Boston Celtics ceiling is championship. I feel like they can get to the finals. I just don't feel like they're good enough to actually win it. So that's why I would take the Pistons. I want to take their core over the Pistons. I mean, like it's cool to be in the running for the championship, but if I don't think your team's going to win it, why would I waste my time taking your core?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a take on the Celtics rebuild for such a long time. I felt like if they didn't really, win a championship or get to the NBA Finals, like if they didn't make the NBA Finals this year, I really thought they would have split up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too. I really did.
I think they won a championship though. I'm not going to go that far.
I'm going to go ahead and say they're not. You can crucify me later if they win. But Oklahoma City Thunder at number 6. Are you taking this? I think this is where it gets tricky. Would you take their core over the Detroit Pistons core?
So they have Chet, Poku, SGA, Luke Dort, Josh Giddey. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of players because they have such a young team. This is hard.
It's a tough one.
This is really hard. I'm going to say the Pistons.
Ooh.
Because I don't really know what OKC's game plan is. It's like, are we going to tank another year and just, kind of waste SGA's prime? Or like, what are we doing? Because they have so many picks, like they could go out and trade for Kevin Durant right now if they wanted to. Like, I don't really know like what they're doing. Like, if they're just going, a slow grow like the Pistons, like, just grow this thing organically. Okay, sure. But I just don't know. I would take the Pistons core. I mean, you have a superstar in Cade Cunningham. You got a backcourt mate in Jaden Ivey, who I think that backcourt is going to be just a tear over the next 10 years for the Pistons. I would take the Pistons over OKC.
It's tough for me, and it's just by a slight edge that I'm going to take the Thunder's core. Just because I think you got your go-to guy in SGA. You got your all-around floor general in Josh Giddey. And then you got a potential defensive anchor in Chet Holmgren and a guy that's not too bad offensively. Like you might have the next Kevin Garnett in Chet Holmgren. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like, it all depends on Chet. And I have a lot of faith in Chet. So that's why I would take that core. nothing against Cade and Jaden Ivey. Love those two guys. It's just that I feel like, and I do kind of agree with you. I don't know what Oklahoma City's doing, but you have that guy in SGA. You have that, you have the floor general, the leader in Josh Giddey, who was not, he played pretty well his rookie year. Then you got Chet, but then you got guys like Lou Dort. He knows his role. He's a 3-and-D guy, and he's improved. So, like, I really like the young core for the Oklahoma City. And I think if you're counting the draft picks as the young core, man, you're winning. They should definitely be number one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna count draft picks, they should have been number one for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if they're counting.
I don't know, maybe it's my fandom linking a little out because I kind of look at like OKC and Detroit, and they're so similar. Like you say Luke Dort, I can match you Sadiq Bey.
Yep.
Like you say Chet Holmgren, I got Jalen Duren. Like I'm not saying they're on the same skill level at all, but I mean like you kind of look at like the rebuilds and they're very similar. Like I think they're very close in terms of like if you were going to say I'm going to choose OKC over the Pistons, I wouldn't be mad at you. I could understand that.
Yeah, and it's just by the slightest of edges that I would take the Thunder. It's just, I mean, I got a lot of faith in Chet Holmgren. I mean, I really do. I think he's going to be great in the NBA. But I mean, I think Duren is going to, I think he's going to be great too. So I mean, you're right. You can go down the list and compare players individually, and yeah, it's really one of those things like you're not losing if you have either of these cores as an NBA fan. You're not going to lose anything. It's going to be fun to watch. A team that I don't think should be on this list at number 7, the Toronto Raptors. Would you take them over the Detroit Pistons? I don't even know who's on their young core.
I mean, you could. Is Gary Trent over 25?
I'm actually about to look it up.
I'm thinking Gary Trent, Scotty Barnes, rookie of the year, obviously had a really good year. Van Vliet, I know he's got to be over 25. Yeah, the Raptors just shouldn't even be on this list, honestly. I feel like they're more of a perennial like playoff team every year because they're just a really good team. I get you have Scotty Barnes in there, but I mean like he's really the only young player that's really coming to my mind right now.
So they have Gary Trent under the age of 25. They have Svi Mykhailiuk at 25. They have Malachi Flynn at 24.
Okay.
They got Isaac Bogna. Heard a little bit about him, not too much, but Scotty Barnes at 20, and then OG Anunoby at 24 as well, which is crazy. Then Precious Achua. I don't know if he signed with the new team or not, but he's 22 as well. So they got a decent young core, but I'm taking the Pistons over that young core. I mean, outside of OG and Scotty and Gary Trent, I don't really care for anybody else in their young core.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Pistons have a deeper young core, but I mean, the Raptors have some pieces there. I mean, I feel like Gary Trent and Scotty Barnes are their two best pieces. I love Gary Trent, man. Like I'd love if he was in Detroit, man. He's such a nice player.
He's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 9, the Houston Rockets. Are you taking their young core over the Detroit Pistons young core?
It's tough because I like a lot of the draft picks. A lot of the draft picks I wanted in Detroit. Like I was the biggest Josh Christopher fan. Love Josh Christopher. Jalen Green. Jabari Smith, who I was really high on coming out of the draft. I know you weren't. You don't really think he's going to be anything good.
Dude, Austin Day, baby. Austin Day.
Good Lord. If he's Austin Day, man, I feel bad for Houston fans. I would probably take the Detroit Pistons core over the Houston Rockets, and it's really close. I feel like I said, you can match them up talent for talent, and it's really close. It's like maybe a smidge.
There are players on the Houston Rockets roster that I'm looking at where I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't mind Jalen Green. I wouldn't mind Kevin Porter. I wouldn't mind Josh Christopher. I was really high on him as well, by the way. I loved Josh Christopher. Segun, they got a decent young core of players. The only reason I'm taking the Pistons, other than being a fan, is like the Pistons young core makes sense. The Houston Rockets young core doesn't make a ton of sense to me right now. Just because you don't have that young playmaker to put it on. They need that glue guy. I don't feel like they have it. And I feel like Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., that's going to be they're going to be split. They're not Tatum and Brown, they're not going to be Tatum and Brown. So I think they'll eventually split. So I'll definitely take the Pistons young core over the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, I mean, if they had like a point guard, I might be indifferent about it. You know what I mean? Like, but they don't really have like a future point guard. I mean, if you're just going to run Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green out there, it's going to be a long season for Rockets fans.
If Houston had got Paolo Banchero over Jabari Smith, I'd probably be going with the Houston Rockets young core, just because I think he is that natural playmaker that you can fit in between both those guys.
For sure.
The 10th team, the Orlando Magic, I think they should be way higher on the list, but are you taking their young core over the Pistons young core?
I'm not, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on their young core. There are two players that haven't played a lot because of injuries. Markelle Fultz, who, started turning it around in Orlando, and I'm blanking on the forward that tore his Achilles. I can't remember his name. Jonathan Isaac.
Jonathan Isaac, yep.
I think a lot of people are sleeping on Jonathan Isaac. I think Jonathan Isaac, if he comes back, to where he was, man, the Magic are going to be a scary team.
I'm just thinking about that. They could legitimately have a lineup of Franz at the 2, Jonathan Isaac at the 3, Paolo Banchero at the 4, then Wendell Carter at the 5. Everybody's 6'9" or taller.
Like, I think people forget, like, before his injury, man, like, he was putting it together. I mean, he was having some games where you're like, okay, the Magic might have struck gold here. I'm hoping he comes back, man, because when the few Magic games that I did watch, when he was healthy, they were really fun to watch.
Dude, he's going to be 25, but he's 6'11", and he plays on the perimeter. Like, I mean, he can play the power forward spot too, but the season that he got hurt, he was averaging 12 and 7 with 2 steals and 2 blocks per game. I mean, it was only 34 games, but holy crap, that's like defensive player of the year numbers right there for him.
Yeah, wow. He was in the conversation too. Like, before he got hurt, like, people were like putting him in the defensive player of the year. I mean, like, you add Paolo into that mix, like, whew, that's gonna be a good team.
I do think Orlando, I do love Paolo there, but I think they missed not drafting Jabari. Like, I think that would have been the perfect situation with them, because you have some playmakers and then you can allow him to grow defensively. But we can move on after that, because it's a lot of talking about young cores, man. Unless you have any final thoughts.
No, I think, having the Pistons, the fact that we've made the list, I'm happy we're getting some love from Bleacher Report, because they kind of have to talk about us now, because we have, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, so they probably cringe every time they read an article. So I'm happy about it.
They're like, dang it, we got to talk about these guys again. All right, this next topic came to me when I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast. It was his trade value episode. So here's the question. You're an expansion team, and the NBA gives you a choice between Trae Young and Cade Cunningham. Who are you picking? It's not an easy question to answer, though. I've been debating about it for a couple of days now. I know who I would take, but Anthony, who would you take out of those two if you're an expansion NBA team?
So I did want to add some context for people that did not listen to this podcast. Don't, by the way, it's 2 hours. And I listened to 2 hours, and I wish I would get it back, because it was the biggest waste of freaking time I've ever listened to a podcast. I love Bill Simmons, by the way, but I'm not listening to your podcast ever again. They're too damn long. And way too many ad reads. So for some context, they said if you're paying Trae Young and Cade Cunningham $30 million, who would you take? They both agreed that they would take Cade Cunningham. And I agree with them. I would take Cade Cunningham over Trae Young. The reason why I would take Cade Cunningham over Trae Young is I'm getting a guy that can play both ends of the floor and can turn on the switch whether he wants to playmaker score. I think we haven't even seen this what Cade Cunningham can be as a player. I know we saw like 24, 7, and 7 in March. Man, like we haven't even entered Cade's prime yet, and that's scary to think about.
Yeah, I think it's a tough question, because you have a guy that's 23 years old in Trae Young that's led the Atlanta Hawks already to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, I'm not picking him just because he's only like 6'2", and I don't know how he's going to play with Dante Murray off the ball. I mean, if I knew more about that, it might change my answer. But I got to go with Cade, man. I mean, he's 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", can play point guard, can play off the ball, can play both ways. He can hurt you from the post. He can hurt you from the mid-range. He can set guys up. He is the complete package of a player, just a guy that's going to put his head down and go to work, and you don't even know how he did it. Like, that's what's so spectacular about Cade Cunningham. But I don't want to just dismiss Trae Young completely, because he's a superstar in his own right. And I think having Dante Murray taking some of the pressure off him is only going to expand his game. But again, if I'm an expansion team, I'm taking the 6'7" point guard over the 6'2" point guard any day of the week.
Yeah, it's no slight at Trae Young either. I mean, I mentioned earlier, I think he's a top 10 point guard in the NBA right now. I mean, who wouldn't love to have a guy that's very similar to Steph Curry from the standpoint of, being able to shoot the 3-point shot pretty much anywhere on the court. I remember going to a Pistons game and he was literally shooting it from the logo and it went in. Like Trae Young is like one of the best shooters in this league. And I think a lot of people sleep on his passing ability too. He's a really good passer. Just the thing with him is defensively, like, what am I getting out of you? And he's not the best defender, and I think a lot of people in the league know that. And I think that's a big reason why they traded for DeJounte Murray, so that they can switch everything and hide Trae Young on the defensive end of the floor.
Dude, he averaged 28 and 10 with 1 steal per game this past year, shooting 90% from the free throw line, 38% from the 3-point line, and like 46% on field goal percentage. Or if you want to break it down, 51% from 2-point range. Like, he's an incredible basketball player. You can't go wrong with either one. But I do want to go through, we're going to do another list. We're just going to go down and say who, if you would take one guy over Cade Cunningham. These are 1, 2, 3. These are 6 players, 6 guys that are 25 or younger that were ahead of Cade Cunningham on the trade value list. But Devin Booker, he comes in at number 1, age of 25. You taking him over Cade, or are you keeping Cade in an expansion draft?
I will keep Cade.
Same. I think there's no debate about that. Evan Mobley, he's 21 years old. You taking Evan Mobley in an expansion draft over Cade?
No.
Okay. I think this is the next guy that I think it gets a little tricky. And I have my answer, and I don't think we'll get into it. Anthony Edwards, he's 20 years old. In an expansion draft, are you taking him over Cade Cunningham?
I am not. I'm not taking Anthony Edwards over Cade Cunningham.
Oh, man. There's only 2 guys on this list that I would take over Cade Cunningham, and it's by the slightest of margins, and Anthony Edwards is one of them, because I think he could legit be another like franchise guy. He has that confidence, that swagger about him, and he just, he has that attitude that's like, okay, I can build a winner around him.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there. I just think Cade has another level that we haven't even seen yet. Like, I go back to it being a rookie and just dominating the way he did. And you have to remember, I mean, his backcourt mate was freaking Corey Joseph, and he still was producing. And he didn't, outside of like Sadiq Bey, who was the best 3-point shooter on this team, really.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you're right. I mean, and again, the other point that you made, we haven't seen enough of Cade. That's what makes these lists hard for me. But I've seen a lot from Anthony Edwards. And again, it's just the slightest that I would take him over Cade as like the franchise guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it. I mean, like, I like Anthony Edwards a lot. I feel like if the Pistons didn't get screwed during the COVID year, they probably would have got the first pick anyways, because they had the first Minnesota twice. We probably would have had Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball on this team. So
I don't even want to think about that. That'd be incredible. Jason Tatum, he's 24 years old. Would you, in an expansion draft, Tatum or Cade?
So this is an expansion draft, so I got to think about the future. So I'm going to take Cade over Tatum.
I'm going to take Cade over Tatum as well. No slight against him. John Morant, 22 years old. You taking him over Cade in an expansion draft?
Yeah, I'm taking Cade over.
You're taking Cade over every one of these guys, it seems like.
It's because I'm thinking about the future. Like, John Morant, I hope this doesn't happen, but he scares the shit out of me when he dunks. I get like Derrick Rose vibes when I see him dunk and the way he lands. Like, I hope someone talks to him about like landing, like square on his feet, because some of the dunks he has, yeah, they're entertaining, but like, you don't want to see that happen to a star player. And I think John Morant is so talented. Like I told you earlier, I would take, the Grizzlies core over the Pistons core just because of John Morant and how special he is. But I got to think of Cade, and I got to think of the longevity. And I think Cade could play 15 plus years in the NBA because his type of style, the way he plays, it's not based off athleticism. He's not the most athletic guy, but he still gets to the basket. He can still hit his shots. So I would definitely take Cade over John Morant.
Even when I'm looking at this list, I would take Mobley, Anthony Edwards, and actually Tatum over John Morant, just because I'm with you. I don't know if John Morant's style of play holds up. And I love that you compared him to Derrick Rose, but I don't even think he wins an MVP like Derrick Rose did. I mean, I think he's going to end up similarly in a similar situation as a Derrick Rose, as a John Wall. I'm not like hoping that John Morant gets hurt. It's just with these really athletic guards, it's one, you can even date it back to like Steve Francis and Baron Davis. You don't win with athletic guards like that. It's never been a recipe for success. So that is why I would take Cade over John Morant. It says that it's never been a recipe for a winner having a short athletic guard. And plus, there's just too much of an injury risk that's there with the way he plays. He lands awkwardly so many times. It's terrifying watching John Morant plays sometimes.
It's crazy too. He was injured this year because he landed awkwardly, and the Grizzlies actually had a higher winning percentage when he was out of the lineup. This kind of shows you how deep their core is and how well coached they are.
Yeah, but also to my point, it also shows that you don't really win with a short athletic guard. I mean, you can win during the regular season, but it's kind of like a negative when your team outperforms without the superstar.
Oh, for sure. And I'm one of the biggest John Morant fans. I love watching Ja play. I mean, Minnesota was my League Pass team last year, just because I just love John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr.
I do like Jaren Jackson Jr. as well. So the final young guy under the age of 25 is Luka Doncic, an expansion team. You got Cade and you got Luka both on the table. There's a couple things to think about. You have Cade where, he's younger, roughly the same size. They're kind of similar in a way. But Luka, he's already been proven. He's gotten his team deep into the playoffs. He's also a foreign-born player, so you have like the global popularity of him. And I think that plays a part in when you're drafting guys, especially for an expansion team.
Yeah, this is probably pretty easy for me. I'm gonna go Luca because I feel like Troy Okay, we're back. You guys lost internet. Sorry about that. Just waiting for Lance to come back. Man, if you guys have any questions, drop them down below, and we'll answer them. Man, fucking internet, man. I swear, freaking internet, man.
Are we live right now too?
Yeah, this whole stream has been live for, when it crashed. So we still got 133 people in here. Like the fact that you guys stayed on during dead air space, man. Shout out to you guys.
I was freaking out too. I'm like, I hope nobody can see me, and I'm pretty sure everybody still could see me make faces. I think I might have even picked my nose when you left, so that's embarrassing. But let's just jump right back into it, dude. We have Luka Doncic on the board. You were talking. What's your reasoning behind taking Luka over Cade?
From what I remember, I think I said that I would take Luka over Cade because Troy Weaver would be obviously building this team, and I think he would have better players than Tim Hardaway Jr. is his second option. And I think if you surround Luka with talent that aren't role players, who knows what'll happen? I mean, I know they got Christian Wood, but I mean, that should be interesting to say the least. But I feel like most Pistons fans would take Luka over Cade, but I could be wrong.
I'm taking Luka over Cade. Again, slightest of margins. He's a great player. Like both of them. I think Cade, like, he's going to be great. I think he's going to compete with Luka for a long time. Like I would love to see a Dallas and Detroit finals. Those two going at it. I was at their matchup, their last home game of the season this past year for Detroit when they played again the Joe Dumars bobblehead night. I was there. Luka and Cade. It was fun to watch. It was a fun little matchup. I'm mainly taking Luka over Cade because I think Luka is going to be the face of the NBA. I think he is going to be the number one guy. Like when the NBA talks about their players, Luka is going to be up front and number one. They're going to build the NBA brand around this guy. They've been waiting for a foreign superstar with his type of game for a long time. That's why I think Luka is going to be the face. He's going to drive ticket sales. He's going to put people in the seats. We're going to be playing a bunch of national televised games with Luka. You got the overseas interest with him. Like he's going to be a very popular player. And I think all of that factors in to when you're with an expansion draft. So that is why I would take Luka over Cade. But again, slightest of margins.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even know what Cade's going to be. Like,
this is true.
Cade could be a guy that could average 30 points and like 10 assists, and this could age horribly. We could be on freezing cold takes. Like, we don't even know what Cade's ceiling is and what he could reach his potential at. Like, Cade Cunningham could be like a LeBron. We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I'm looking at Luka's numbers right now, 28, 9, and 9. I mean, that would be hard for me to pass up. It'd be really hard for me to. I mean, but Cade could get there. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, in March, I think Cade was 24, 7, and 7. So it's just like he's not that far behind. Like,
this is true.
If you surround him with better talent, I mean, I feel like those numbers would go up a little bit. You give him some foul calls, maybe he would get up to 28.
Yeah, that's true. If he got fouls called, he would definitely be up there. So we're going to talk about the young core for a second because JJ Redick brought this up on Old Man and the Three. JJ Redick says, and I didn't write everything down, but this was the part where he was talking about why he's picking the Detroit Pistons young core. He says, because I think in 2 or 3 years, they will be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And then he goes on to say, JJ says, this needs to happen in order for them to reach that ceiling. And it's all dependent on Cade becoming a true number one franchise level player. And, I think he does. But do you agree with JJ Redick that the Detroit Pistons will be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference in 2 or 3 years?
Yes, I do. I think the Pistons' time of getting back into the playoffs and winning playoff series is going to happen sooner than later. I agree with everything of what JJ Redick said. I think, you have your core building blocks. You have Cade, you have Sadiq, you had Jaden Ivey. You're still building this organically, and I think that's the right way to do it. all you have to do is add veterans that can help you get to that point. And I think the Pistons are really close. I'm not to the point where some people are saying the Pistons are 4 or 5 years away. I don't think they're that far away. I think the Pistons are closer than people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with you, and I agree with JJ Redick that they're 2 or 3 years away. And I mean, they're going to be a top 3, top 4 team in the Eastern Conference, and they just have everything in place. They just need the experience and some more veterans on the roster, and they'll be right up there. I mean, I think Cade is going to dominate the Eastern Conference for a long time, and just those pieces around him, Sadiq Bey, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, Duren, those Isaiah Livers, those guys are all going to be a huge part of it. They all blend so nicely with what Cade can do on a backcourt, and I think those guys growing and their roles and how they play alongside Cade, I think that's even more important than Cade just becoming a franchise player. Because no matter what, Cade is going to be the guy. No matter what team he's on, he's going to be that guy. But I really do think what is so dependent on the Pistons reaching to be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference is just the guys surrounding Cade, upping their game and becoming better players. I think that's more important than Cade just becoming a franchise player.
Yeah, I mean, just from a talent standpoint, I feel like from last year's roster to going into this season, it's a hell of a lot better. You addressed a lot of needs that you didn't have last year. I mean, you addressed, the shooting guard position. You addressed having more depth in the front court. I think this team is like the ceiling should be a play-in, but hey, they could surprise us. They could, start off really hot, like they did a few years ago, and they could, be around like that 8 to 6 seed. You never know.
Yeah, I didn't think there would be a play-in team this upcoming season, but I'm starting to feel the play-in jitters, man. I really am starting to feel that for the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I think they can do it. I mean, you kind of look at, the vets on this team. You've added more veterans. Like you have Ronnie Magruder, I believe, that's still on the roster. You have Corey Joseph. You have Nerlens Noel. You have Alec Burks. So you're going to have more veterans in that locker room, and those guys have had success in the playoffs, and I think having those veterans in the locker room can really help mold these young guys.
Yeah, I mean, Alec Burke and Nerlens Noel 2 years ago, they played significant roles in helping the Knicks get to the playoffs, so they're definitely all about winning. They know what it takes.
For sure.
All right, final topic of the podcast before we get into the Q&A if we have any questions. Is this the best comparison for Isaiah Livers? Like, I think it is. I know you have a difference of opinion, but I was sitting there thinking about this the other night. Who does Isaiah Livers remind me the most of? And we're talking anybody in the history of the game. It's Shane Battier. Like, I think Isaiah Livers and Shane Battier are such similar players. Like, they're both around 6'7", 6'8". I believe they were both Mr. Basketballs in the state of Michigan when they were in high school. They are unselfish. They're very unselfish players. They sacrifice their individual numbers for the team. This goes back to when they were both in college, even though Shane Battier was a National Player of the Year. When he came into the NBA, he was all rookie first team. He said to himself, you know what? The way I play, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. That means even if I got to sacrifice my individual numbers for the team, that is why I think Isaiah Livers and Shane Battier are very similar players. I mean, like, they're both also Swiss Army knives, and whatever you want from them, they're going to bring to the team.
I know when we were texting last night, I was like, dude, I just don't see it. I don't see Shane Battier at all. I told you I see a little bit of, a Dylan Brooks in there, which if he did not play during the summer league, my comp would not be Dylan Brooks. But I saw some similarities to Dylan Brooks and Isaiah Livers. They both can shoot the three-point shot. They both have some sort of a mid-range game. And I think there's stuff there that we haven't even seen yet from Isaiah Livers. And if Isaiah Livers turns into a Dylan Brooks type player, that is a home run pick for the Pistons in the second round. Like, Dylan Brooks is a player. I know a lot of people, associate him with, injuring Gary Payton during the playoffs this year. But I mean, he's scrappy. I think a lot of teams are going to try to probably trade for him this offseason. I would not be surprised by that because he's just one of those guys that you need on a championship level roster, kind of like a Marcus Smart type of player.
I just don't think Isaiah Livers is going to be the scorer in the NBA that Dylan Brooks has been. I mean, his last 3 years, 16, 17, 18 points a game. I don't know if I see that from Isaiah Livers. I agree with like the scrappiness, like that mentality that Dylan Brooks plays with. I think that's very similar to Isaiah Livers, but I think everything that Isaiah Livers brings from you, from being a defensive player, he can spot up and shoot. He could bring the ball up for you. He has a little bit of a post game. He has great length. He's a defensive minded player, and he's a great communicator. Like those are all things Shane Battier was in the NBA, and that is why I think that's the best comparison for Isaiah Livers. But we can agree to disagree, and I want to confirm that Shane Battier did win Mr. Basketball of the state of Michigan in 1997. Isaiah Livers won it in 2017. So there's another similar thing between the two of them.
Oh, that's why you wanted to compare them.
I did. Wanted to show my knowledge and how I know how to use Google. Wanted to show that off.
Oh man, like I was just like, man, there's got to be a reason why he wanted to compare Shane Battier to Isaiah Livers. So you actually made me watch Shane Battier highlights last night. I'm like,
dude, he's a phenomenal player.
I'm looking, I was like, no.
Oh man. I think you still should post a poll though of like our players that we picked and see what the fans of the podcast and the fans of Pistons talk say about that.
We'll do it on IG tonight after this pod is over. We'll see who compares more to Isaiah Livers, Shane Battier, or Dylan Brooks.
Sounds good to me, man. That's all I have for the topics, though. I don't know if we have any Q&A questions, though, or if people – I know we're into an hour and a half on this thing, but –
man, it wouldn't have been an hour and a half if the internet didn't crash.
This is true. This is true.
But, yeah, if you guys have any questions you want answered, we'll do Q&A for maybe like the next 10 minutes or so. So, definitely want to get your questions answered because there's over 151 people in here right now, which we do appreciate a lot. That's even up from last week. If you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure to be subscribed and hit that like button. But let's see if we have any questions. Here we go. This one comes from Nick Gabber. Do you think the Pistons should trade Killian Hayes?
No, not right now. I want to see him play in the regular season, and I want to see him try to up his value because I don't think he'd be really worth that much on the trade market right now.
Yeah, I kind of have the same opinion. I think obviously him playing off the bench was something that I thought that was going to happen as soon as we got Cade anyways, and you kind of saw him get more confidence when he was playing off the bench, and now you have players possibly like a Jalen Duren and a Marvin Bagley to just throw lobs to, which is going to be absolutely insane. If those are your 4 and 5 with Killian Hayes off the bench and maybe a Hami Diallo, that's going to be a fun bench.
Yeah, nobody's hitting threes, though. Everybody's just driving in the lane, throwing lobs.
Hey, Marvin Bagley can shoot a little bit.
A little bit.
Oh, man. Another Killian Hayes question. Do you feel uneasy about Killian Hayes' potential to be riddled with injuries?
No. I just feel like the torn hip labrum, just a freak accident. And I think the thumb injury, again, he's an active defensive player, man. He's going to put his hands places that a lot of players don't want to put them. And, I think also him being a little reluctant offensively opens him up because I think he got hurt in the act of shooting, right? Like that's what happened. Yeah. I think if he was a little bit more aggressive, that probably wouldn't have happened. So no, I just think the injuries are freak, and I don't think it has really anything to do with him as a player. I think he's going to be healthy for the most part.
Yeah, I think we said it last podcast. I believe it was his thumb or his finger. He injured, and he was leading the team in three-point shooting prior to that injury, which is absolutely insane. Like if you would have said Killian Hayes is going to lead this team in three-point shooting within the first 20 or 25 games in the season, you probably would have thought I was a liar, like straight up. But I don't feel uneasy about it. I think his potential is still untapped. I mean, Troy said it when he drafted him. He reminds him of a Goran Dragic, which I think they're similar in a standpoint, but I don't think Killian offensively is there yet. I feel like Killian, we really won't know what he is until like maybe his 5th or 6th year in the NBA.
That's fair. That is fair. Yeah, it took Goran Dragic to his 4th year to average double figures in scoring.
Looks like, did you freeze up? Oh, you're good.
I'm here. froze up again. That's not good. All right, I'm here again.
You know what, man? This internet can suck a fat dick. What the hell, man? It's never happened to me before. Like,
I hope it's not just because I got a storm going on over here, but
it could be. Honestly, sorry for my language if anyone's listening. I know we kind of have like younger fans, but damn, this is stupid. So this one comes from Patty Grimes. Are the Pistons one draft lottery away from winning?
ooh, I used to think that. I used to think you had the Cade draft, you would get Jaden Ivey. Then I thought they were gonna tank for one more year because next year's draft class is supposed to be loaded and much stronger than it was this past year. I don't think that anymore because they got Duren as well. They got 2 lottery picks in this past draft. So I think they're all in on trying to win this year. So no, I don't think they're one draft. I did think that though at one point.
Yeah, like if they didn't get Duren, I'd probably think the same way. I don't think the Pistons are going to be within that top 5 of the lottery this year. If they're healthy. And now if they're not healthy, then you can throw that out the window. But I think we'll probably be picking anywhere between like 6 and 9 around that area. So I think this is going to be a team that a lot of Pistons fans actually watch, because I know last year not a lot of Pistons fans were actually watching the games like at all. Like it was probably like an all-time low of like when you had like a Corey Joseph and a Cade Cunningham backcourt.
I think I watched every game but like 7 of them last year.
Man, I had a hell of a time watching because of like the whole belly thing, and like because I had I want to say I had like Hulu and then like YouTube, and then like Bally just like cut it. But now they have like that streaming service that I'm probably gonna buy for $20 a month and just say screw it.
Man, I told one of my clients it was $20 a year, but whatever.
All right. This question comes from Pistons Mike. Which Piston have a lot to gain or lose next season?
Ooh, I'll give you 3. Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey. Those would be my 3. They have the most to gain and the most to lose next year.
I will probably go. This is hard. Hamid Diallo, Kelly Olynyk, and Alec Burks.
Decent list. One went a little younger, though. Decent list, though.
I think Burks has a lot to gain because if you look at his contract situation, it's a team option. Him and Noel are team options. So if he produces, it could, Troy could actually keep him if he wanted to. But I don't know if he's going to want to keep him for the money. Kelly Olynyk, I think he has a lot to gain too on this roster because I feel like there's still room for him on this roster. I know I've said the last couple of podcasts that I would trade him personally. Wouldn't be surprised if he was dealt by the deadline. But I feel like he has a lot to gain if he wants to audition for a playoff team. And if he plays like crap, teams aren't going to trade for him. He's just going to be stuck here for another year. And Hamid Diallo, I mean, he's a guy that a lot of Pistons fans are really high on. A lot of fans want him in the starting lineup. I think he has to produce this year for KC to actually give him playing time. We saw last year those two get into it because he wasn't giving any sort of effort on the defensive end. Lost his rotation minutes to Josh Jackson. So I think Hamid Diallo is probably the biggest one for me. Is you have to play both ends of the floor if you want playing time.
That's fair. That's fair.
Let's see. Quit using McDonald's internet. If you saw my internet bill, you probably wouldn't say that.
That's pretty funny, though. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, McDonald's, like, bro, like, I'll just tell a story and then we'll get back to Q&A. So I hooked up to McDonald's internet, and I'll never do it again because as soon as I did that, someone got my credit card information and they went on a shopping spree.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it was so bad. Like I'm getting like texts like, hey, did you buy 15 cases of like, I think it was like aloe vera something at Sam's Club or something like that. I was like, no.
Was
It's like $300. I was like, holy crap, the hell?
What was a camp or something? Stealing the credit card from you? Holy crap. Who
I
needs
don't
that
know.
much aloe vera? What are you doing?
I don't know, but honestly, we'll get back to the Q&A. I just saw the McDonald's internet, and I was just like, bro, like, just got PTSD to that. Vendetta has a pretty good question. Will Dwayne Casey be a coach that produces winning basketball once again?
Oh man, I think Dwayne Casey's here to set the foundation. I don't think he will be a part of. He might have a season of winning basketball in Detroit with this young core. I just don't. I think his time is going to be coming up soon. I think he's only going to be here for like another 2 seasons. Great guy, just don't think he's going to be here in producing winning basketball for the Detroit Pistons.
So what would you say his floor is in terms of like win total?
I mean, like I said, I think I could see him get 1 winning season out of the young core. And I mean, we're talking like maybe 42-40 at his peak with this core. I don't see him doing much better than that. But if I'm thinking like realistically, I would probably say like mid to high 30 wins for Dwayne Casey.
Yeah, like I have us right now sitting at around 36 wins for the season, which I think is doable with the talent we added and, you know, the veterans. But will Dwayne Casey be a coach that produces winning basketball once again? I think he's a bridge. I think he's just I think he's just a placeholder. I don't think the Pistons have, you know, found that coach to kind of elevate them to, you know, get to that next level. Like I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter, and they're like, Stan Van Gundy a better coach than Dwayne Casey? And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I think so. I think Stan Van Gundy was a better X's and O's coach than Dwayne Casey.
Yeah, I know I've never been impressed with Dwayne Casey's offense. Like I've been impressed with the development and the defensive side of things for the most part. Like I think he gets a lot out of guys. But in terms of X's and O's on offense, yeah, I think Stan Van Gundy is. I mean, man, dude, he gave us the Orlando Magic teams with Dwight Howard. Like they were pretty good offensively for the most part. And they were one of the first teams to play 4 out, you know, and just had added shooting all around Dwight Howard. He's one of the first coaches to do that. So in terms of X's and O's, I would agree with that. And I do agree that Dwayne Casey's a bridge coach. I think he's there just to lay down the foundation. But I had a friend who said Dwayne Casey would be here for like another 5 years. I'm like, dude, you're fucking nuts, man. 5 years, 5 more years of Dwayne Casey.
I wouldn't be surprised by that though, because like
what?
You kind of have to look at Tom Gores as like an owner and how long it took him to fire Stan Van Gundy. Like when Mike Budenholzer was out there, Tom Gores was having another meeting with Stan Van Gundy because he wasn't sure. Like it took him a long time to fire Van Gundy. And
yeah, but we got Troy Weaver now.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, like I think Gores is more involved than we know, and he's just been quiet for the past couple of years.
I said something about Tom Gores probably like last year or something, where people ridiculed me, and I had got private messages from people telling me I was crazy, but I forget who was open to being traded. It was like some all-star or whatever. And I had said, if Tom Gores wants him, it doesn't matter what Troy Weaver says. Troy Weaver can say, be patient. But if Tom Gores wants a player, you best believe they're going to get that player. And I mean, I don't know how much Troy Weaver has like say if he can like tell him to go down, but I agree with you on Tom Gores. Like I do think he has a larger voice in that room than people give him credit for.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't think Dwayne Casey can be here for 5 years.
No, like I wouldn't surprise me like if Casey was here for like another 3 because it's just Tom Gores. You look at like, you know, previous coaches, he's always gone for like that, you know, A-tier type of coach. Like I remember when he was trying to get Izzo away from Michigan State when Maurice Cheeks was here, and then like he let Mo Cheeks go, and it's just like, dude, like Mo Cheeks was actually not a bad coach. He was like okay, but it's just like I think Troy probably told him, you know, give me 5 years, and you know you can do what you want.
I think this way, if Troy Weaver, if his expectations are for the Pistons to win this year and the Pistons struggle, which they probably will at some points, that's when Casey's seat gets a little warmer. I'll say this is the year where KC's seat starts to get hot if he doesn't produce close to a winning basketball team. And then I'll say he has another year after that. I think realistically Dwayne Casey has 2 more seasons in Detroit before he's gone.
Yeah, I don't even know who like we could target. Like dream scenario, I'd love Jerry Stackhouse, but that's just like a dream scenario. But it's just like Darvin Ham. Like the fact that the Lakers got him, I was just like, man, like they brought Rasheed with them. I was like, man, like
I wouldn't mind a guy like Ime Aduko, like a young, innovative guy. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, or like a Quinn Snyder. Like I wouldn't mind him in Detroit. Like I know like he stepped away from Utah, but I mean like we're talking like a bridge coach. Like I feel like if you had a Quinn Snyder, like he may be able to get the Pistons over the hump.
He looks like a villain, and I wouldn't mind him in Detroit. I got a question for you, though, and I don't know if we have any more questions, but I wanted to ask you this. We saw LeBron James play in the Drew League. Mm-hmm. What Pistons would you want to watch in like an exhibition game like that? Who do you think would be the most fun and most entertaining player?
You know what? I think Marvin Bagley would.
That's a good. Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool too. I was thinking Killian Hayes when there's like he can just be relaxed and there's nothing, like it doesn't matter. He can just go out there and just play. I think he would be a lot of fun in an exhibition game like the Drew League. I think he would tear things up and get people talking.
Yeah, I mean, and some of these comments that are coming in, like I can't. Like, there's one. This one, it's gonna live rent free in my head for a long time. It's come from Nick Gabber.
Oh my gosh.
Like, bro, like some of these like comments you guys just like put in, like I'm not even gonna repeat that, but like that's just funny, man.
Do you think he does, if he does have a picture of Andre Drummond in his bedroom, the movie Major League where they were just slowly taking a post-it note off of for the lady to see? It's probably the same thing with Andre Drummond. Every win the Pistons get, another post-it comes off for Tom Cruise to see Andre Drummond and everything.
This one would be a lot of people's worst nightmares, though.
I don't even know how to respond to that, but I'm pretty sure you spelled his first name wrong. I don't think there's an E in Corey's name.
No, I don't know, but Corey Joseph is the next head coach. That would be something.
Dude, bring me no. Bring me Corliss Williamson as the head coach. He's been coaching in college, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I just know how Pistons fans are. Like if like Casey wasn't here and you had like Darvin Ham and Rasheed coming back to coach again, man, this city would be electric. Like honestly, like I know people love Coach Casey and I do too, but it's just like we're in a rebuild, so it's just like I'm not like too impatient with it, but at the same time,
I get it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm done talking about Dwayne Casey though.
Yeah, like I know people still think, how can there be pressure to win if we're still tanking?
I don't think the Pistons are tanking this year.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like, I don't think we're like going to like throw like Corey Joseph and Nerlens Noel in the start of the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're like, gonna purposely tank, but I mean, I feel like they're gonna at least try to win games. Like we saw the last half of the season, like they were in games. They were competing. I know like a lot of people like to bring this up, but like I think the Pistons covered like 21 out of 23 games, which is crazy because Vegas was just like betting against the Pistons, and people that were betting on the Pistons were making a shitload of money at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think one of the spreads was like 25 or something for a Pistons game, and I'm like, I know that they were playing someone that I didn't think they were that good, so I thought the spread was crazy. I checked it out a few times, but I don't really gamble too much during the NBA season.
Yeah, me either. I'm not much of a gambler because I know if I do, I'll just get like addicted and I'll lose money and I'll get pissed.
I do it during the NFL season. I just put a little bit of money in, and then when it runs out, that's it. But I was actually able to pay for my Pistons season tickets with my gambling winnings this year.
Oh, damn. Look at you.
I got real lucky. Some of it was even free money from one of the apps. It was kind of crazy.
That's crazy.
I'm a pretty lucky guy. Let me just say that.
Yeah, I mean, one of my coworkers, I'm not going to name who, but I remember him freaking skipping around the office when he won like $6,000.
Holy crap, that'd be in one bet. That would be incredible. Wow.
Yeah, he did. He was skipping around the office. I was like, holy crap, bro, that's crazy.
Wow.
If we shut down players at the end of the season, we're tanking. Well, yeah, that's a whole different conversation. I don't think the Pistons are going to shut down players at the first week of the season. I just don't see us tanking. I mean,
Yeah, neither do I.
unless there's like an injury, like Cade or Sadiq or Ivey all go down at the start of the season, I just don't see it happening. I think they'll be competitive. I think if they're out of the play-in picture, like All-Star break, like they're like, let's say they're like 10, 15 games behind, then yeah, sure. They might just focus on development and just like, hey, we're developing again. We want another high pick. Like, yeah, but I think the Pistons are going to be a lot better than people give them credit for.
Same. I don't think they're tanking at all this year, unless, like you said, an injury or if they planned on winning and they were 15 or so games behind, and they're like, "Look, it's just better. Let's just play the young guys and develop them. Forget the playoffs." It might happen that way, but I don't see it happening that way.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you guys watching us during 2 internet outages. Shout out to our internet. But we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching the podcast live on YouTube. And if you aren't already, go over to Spotify, give us a 5-star rating, and subscribe to that. We're trying to get our Spotify numbers we're on all podcast platforms. We do really appreciate you guys, watching. I think there was over 160 people one time watching this live, which is absolutely incredible on a Sunday night at 7:30 at night. So we do appreciate you guys for that. Talk to you guys next week. Peace.
Oh, real quick, just for the podcast, follow me at Lance Caparosi on Twitter. Follow Anthony at Pistons Talk across all social media platforms. And, go to subscribe to the Pistons Talk podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts. Drop a rating, leave a comment. More importantly, tell a Pistons fan.
Later, guys.